His name is Zach Costello. He has a YouTube channel with 100,000 subscribers, and he had a couple videos made about me, one saying I shouldn't talk about marriage, a couple defending Nala Reay, and just commenting on why marriage is falling apart. So I wanted to invite him on the show, and yeah, you can bring him up. Hi, Zach. How are you?
Hey, Pearl. Good. How are you?
Good. Where are you calling from?
I'm right outside of DC, Northern Virginia area.
Okay. So I kind of wanted to start with some of the points that you made in your video, and I wanted to talk about where we disagree, maybe to start.
Sure.
Okay, so do you want to start with the Nala Reay situation? Let's start there. So I want to
Sure.
know why
Well,
you felt like I was wrong to point out that her conversion did not seem genuine.
well, I guess my question to you would be: are you questioning her conversion, or are you questioning her detriment? I would say to Christianity, or do you feel as though she's trying to con Christians into believing that she's a convert for money? Because it seems like that was more so your take with
Yes,
regard to Nala
yes,
Ray.
I think she is a con. And the reason I think she
Like totally con. So you don't believe that this girl stopped doing OnlyFans because she found Christ, and how she found Christ. I mean, I know you just talked to Andrew Wilson last week.
yeah.
I have some disagreements with her if we want to talk philosophically and theologically about
Mhm.
the Christianity that she spouts, I guess you can say.
Okay.
But in my opinion, and this is where I disagreed with you,
Mhm.
is I said you have a hopeless message with regard to Nala Ray. And that's basically what I'm defending here, in that I believe that if somebody wants to turn their life around and turn away from sin, I guess you
Mhm.
can say, if we're going to speak in religious language, that is a good thing. Now,
Mhm.
how she went about doing it publicly, now turning into, what you would call a Protestant pastor, that is where I would say, okay, like, don't agree with everything that she's saying there. But like I said, and I think a tweet that I responded to of yours, like, I think we can all agree that Nala not being an OnlyFans model, I'll use
Mhm.
appropriate language here,
A hooker.
and being a confused Christian
Like a hooker.
is better for her, right? It's better for her, it's better for society. I think we can all agree. I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah, but the problem is I've seen this film before, and I don't think it's necessarily a good thing when we have an OnlyFans model to preacher pipeline, and I'm not allowed to call out inconsistencies in her stories. So, one thing that she claimed was that she was baptized and she had a change of heart in December. She had 5 months to delete her OnlyFans. 5, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5. She doesn't delete it until the day before the Michael Knowles interview. In that time period, her prices were raised. She has active chats going on where she's communicating with men and still sending nudes. So, she can say one thing, but if I look at her actions, I think if you're claiming I had a change of heart in December and this isn't about money, then you wouldn't make it about money. You wouldn't start a Jesus Christ brand, right? You wouldn't start selling Jesus sweatshirts. And I think that's the challenge where I just think that people blindly believing her without verifying anything are just foolish. And then they come at me when I'm right.
Okay, Pearl. And I know that you said that, and I know that you've recently come out and said that I was right, and I'll take apologies for that. Can you clarify what you're claiming to be right about?
So if I would say that I am right that she did not have a change of heart because she doesn't know what she's talking about. So
But
I think
I
it was very
would say that
so
she has had a change of heart with regard to not doing OnlyFans, not being a hoe anymore.
well, I
She's
never
just a
did on
confused Christian
but so
now, which I feel like is better.
I never did OnlyFans. Where's my interview? Where's my bonus points? Where's my real Christianness? I never did it. And the
True.
thing
I
is
mean,
the
I'm not
problem
saying that she
when we're
gets.
clapping for like she's doing the bare minimum. And it's not even the bare minimum because she goes on a podcast with on whatever, and she's being completely disrespectful. She doesn't know anything about the word. So it's very clear, it's very clear that she hasn't been reading her Bible, that she doesn't know what she's talking about. Like what actions other than the bare minimum has she done? Anything?
Okay, fair enough. My question to you would be, what is there to gain for you in claiming that you are right? So what is there to gain for you for her failing to change her life and turn her life around?
Well, I think that the truth is important regardless of how it makes people feel. So you might feel icky. Oh, I mean, it's a really great story, right? That's a really great movie. Porn star becomes a pastor, really changes her life. We all want that to be true. But if the facts don't line up with what she's saying, and magically when she's getting the Christian clout, that's when she's magically deciding to delete it. If we look at the incentives, I'm not going to stop saying it just because it ruins people's story.
True, and I think we should stand for the truth. I totally agree with that. Now, here's my thing that, and when it comes down to it, like, I don't think that Nala should necessarily be a Christian influencer, even though it seems like she's trying to be. I certainly don't think that she gets to be a pastor, but that's where, when it comes to my faith, which is, well, I'm a Catholic versus a Protestant faith, like, you don't just get to become a pastor in in my tradition, for example, and same with, Andrew Wilson, who's Orthodox.
Yeah,
You become a
but
lay person.
Catholics
You
have
become you become a Catholic,
mhm,
and then in order to even enter into the Catholic
mhm,
Church, you have to go through an initiation period. But I agree with Andrew
yeah.
Wilson in that what Nala has turned into is he calls it buffet Christianity, where she can pick and choose the things that she likes, and that is not the case for a number of denominations, like even good Protestant, obviously good Protestant ones, Catholic, Orthodox, etc. Like, we believe Christianity to be objective. We are subject to the interpretation that we've been given by the authority of the church, for example.
Right, but
We
what
don't get to go in and interpret our own scripture. So
mhm,
I think this is the problem when it comes to Christian OnlyFans models,
mhm.
basically justifying what they're doing. Jesus agrees with what I'm doing. Like, that's not the way that
But
it works.
but
So
you're
I
part but you
go ahead.
become part of the problem when you're white knighting for her, and, like, you make videos condemning me for saying what I said, which was true, and you don't make any video condemning her now. Like, where's the video now where you say, "Hey, you shouldn't be preaching. Hey, that's incorrect." Maybe I missed it. I'm not saying I saw it all, but it's like that's what I get from Christians. They're mad at me for my tone and me for pointing it out, but they're not mad at her for being disrespectful to Andrew and spreading things that are not true.
Yeah, I'll grant to you that her current behavior, her current theology, I do not agree with. I haven't gotten into it
Mhm,
online. Now, that being said, when it comes down to me and you, and the reason that I did that video
mhm,
is because I truly believe, and I stand by this, that if somebody is saying that they are going to change their life, then as a Christian,
mhm.
I am, of course, we can be skeptical. Of course, it doesn't mean don't be skeptical, which I think obviously is important. And I would say that's where I value your message, right?
Mhm,
Because I think that level of skepticism is important. But again, like, you cited the prodigal son when you were going after her,
mhm.
and the prodigal son is a great story, and it's a great example, and it refers to all of us. Like, every single one of us, like, we've all made mistakes. We're all sinners. Like, it's hopeless to say that none of us can turn our lives around. Like, we all have to turn our lives around from something.
Okay, what
It may not be as extreme as something
mhm.
like Nala did. Like, I've never done OnlyFans, like, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I've never sinned before, and there aren't things that I've had to get over and turn my life around from.
So what's
So
what's what's more important, actions or words?
well, I mean, yes, actions are more important.
Okay, so other than deleting the OnlyFans after she got Christianity clout, so I'm not even gonna give that as a bonus because she just traded it. We all know if you look at the demographics, white Christian men are OnlyFans customers. That's the number one. You could talk to any OnlyFans model, married Christian men, that's who's buying OnlyFans. So all she did was substitute in her old fans for new Christian fans that are just gonna follow her. And if she ever goes back into it, it's still a backup, right? So other than the deleting the OnlyFans, what did she do? Like, what actions?
Well, my question to you would be there. So, you were community noted for fudging the timelines
Mhm.
on her deleting her OnlyFans account. From what I understand, there's a delay in how OnlyFans allows you to delete account, etc. So,
No,
What
they were incorrect because what they did was they flagged me because it's a simpedemic and it's defend women at all costs. It was December she got baptized. She had 5 months to delete it. If she deleted it the day before the baptism, you still would have had 3 months to clear your contact, or 5 months to clear your contact, make sure all your chats aren't active anymore, and take actual action to clear it. That's 5 months.
well, you said actions, we both agreed that actions are more important. So, I mean, is she doing OnlyFans currently?
No, but she's an influencer. So she's a Chris. She just traded in the one clout for the other. That's it. I mean, like if she was sitting in the back of the church, quiet, reading her Bible, no one would have any problem. But it's that it's becoming a OnlyFans to Christian pipeline.
Do you think that there's any value in previous women women who were previously doing OnlyFans coming out and talking about how terrible the lifestyle is and turning their lives around? Do you think there's any value to that?
Not really. I'd rather hear from the women that didn't do it and lived virtuous lives. I think that when you have ex hoes going around saying, hey, you can do whatever you want and still get married after, you're basically telling younger women, you can literally do OnlyFans and a man will marry you after. So
Yeah,
what
so
was,
you think they're incentivizing that behavior and then they have basically an off ramp later on.
yeah. Then I didn't know I was coerced, whatever. I was so
Yeah.
broken. And the thing is, because I've actually interviewed, you've seen my show. So I've interviewed these women, and when they're doing it, it's not because they're coerced. It's not because they don't know what they're doing. They love being naked on camera. And a lot of these women have a huge addiction to attention. So do I believe overnight that a woman with such an addiction to attention that she got tag teamed on camera by two men at the same time, that in 5 months she's magically better and now can be preaching the gospel? No, I don't believe it. And I think you're yeah,
Right. And well, and I think that I mean, again, I don't think our points of difference are too far apart there. I mean, again, in my tradition, and then, when I speak from my own experience, like this is not something that I necessarily have to deal with other than seeing this online. Because again, when you become Catholic, you have to go through a fairly long initiation process in order to even do so. And then once you become Catholic, you sit in the pew just like all the rest of the lay people, and you listen to you listen to the priest every Sunday. That there's no me becoming a pastor. There's no me coming up with my own interpretation of scripture.
the
So
this
again, like
the first time I saw this was in the Catholic Church. Like it's the same thing, Christiana and Jason Everett. It was the wife got ran through in high school, said, oops, sorry. And then she got a husband after. It's like the same story.
what did you see? What do you mean you saw that within the Catholic Church?
So I meant they have the same thing, but with chastity speakers. It's like the same thing. I mean, the last generation didn't have OnlyFans, but it's like they were hoes. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Christiana, Jason Everett, they're Catholic speakers. No, you don't know them.
I don't know him. No, I don't know him.
Because we would have a
Um,
different one every year, and it would be the same story. It'd be like the guy who like cleaned up her mess, the girl who did whatever she wants, says sorry.
yeah, I mean, again, like when it comes to Catholic marriage prep and a lot of the Catholic education, I mean, I'll say this, and I've been outspoken about this on my channel. I mean, a lot of it is feminist influence. I think like 90% or so of Catholic education and pre-education comes from women. I mean, there's certainly a male leadership problem within the Catholic Church. I mean, you've used terms like I think it's sympedemic
Yeah, it's a
is something
symphodemic.
is what you've said. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and deny that the Catholic Church has not been influenced by feminism. I mean, I think you see that.
Hmm.
I think that's obvious. But yeah, I mean,
So if even you're agreeing that the Catholic Church has been influenced by feminism, how can you still push Catholic marriage and say that feminism won't influence it? Because that's like the next point we're going to go through.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think we can get into marriage. I mean, when it comes to because I believe that the Catholic vision of marriage is ideal. I think it's ideal for men and women, and I think it's ideal especially for men. Now, um, is the messaging, is the marketing, is the approach, is what we're teaching men on how to be leaders? Is that all where it needs to be?
Mhm.
Probably not, not necessarily. But when it comes down to it, and this is a hill I'm willing to die on, I believe that the Catholic vision of marriage is ideal for men and women.
So I don't like to stick with ideals because it just becomes a wish list of what we wish would be true, right?
Yeah, but
So
there's examples of people actually executing this in reality.
right. So again, I'm talking about the women today that men have to pick from as wives are not generally practicing Catholics.
Well, I mean, a prerequisite. I mean, it helps. I mean, there are plenty of statistics on, and I know you know this,
Mhm.
on men and women who attend church weekly every Sunday, men
Right?
and women who pray together. And I know we can get on
Okay.
that. I know you've pushed back on that many
Mhm.
many times. Um, those individuals are less likely to cohabitate before marriage. They're more likely to have low body counts, I guess you can say. And the stats say that those individuals are more likely to have marriage success. But I wouldn't say that that is limited necessarily to just Catholic. I think you can look at other religious denominations, and as long as those habits are being
Mhm.
executed, then you're likely to have more marriage success.
So again, do I care about words or actions?
Well, you've said that you care about action,
Okay,
so
so what action would a young woman take that says she's Catholic? What would be an action she would take? Like choice she would make?
she participates in the sacraments as prescribed by the
Mhm.
Catholic Church.
Okay. And what other choice what would she avoid?
Well, she would avoid sin.
Right. So what percent of women are virgins on their wedding nights?
You tell me.
It's less than 1%. So based on the actions, women aren't choosing this, right?
So we know that obviously men and women who are virgins that get married. I mean, again, this is
Mhm.
if we're talking about the ideal, then obviously this is the ideal. This is what the church teaches: is that men and women who wait until marriage. I mean, what the statistics say, they have the highest rates of marriage success.
Right.
Now we live in an imperfect world,
Mhm.
and as the stats say, and as we can agree, most people are not virgins when they get married.
Right, but who has more choice in terms of a 21-year-old male and a 21-year-old female? Who has more choice in dating?
Well, the 21-year-old female.
Okay, so if the women aren't waiting till marriage, whose choice is that? If we're not waiting till marriage, whose choice? Is it more women or more men?
More women would be choosing to
To not.
wait, right?
No,
Because they have more choice.
no,
Yeah,
I'm saying to not wait. Because we know
to
1 in
not
3,
wait.
yeah, because we know 1 in 3 men under 30 are virgins or haven't had sex in the past year, right?
Okay.
And we're not really seeing the same trends when it comes to women. Like we're seeing the rise in sexless men go up and we're seeing STD rates in women go up. Body counts go up. I mean, we
Okay.
know this, right? So like how can men force
Yeah,
like
I mean, I
they
know,
can't
I
they can't put a
understand that
like I'm saying they
there's
can't put a
degeneracy that is certainly impacting
right.
marriage
But
success in the West.
I'm
No
saying
question about it.
yeah, but I'm saying it's not like the men can hold a gun to the women's head and say be Catholic, wait till marriage. So what are they supposed to do? Ladies, please
No.
wait. Please, please wait. Don't have sex with the quarterback on the football team. Please wait for me. And then they say no, we're going to not do that. And then it goes back to the praying every day. Okay, you get married. You say pray every day. She says no. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think that those types of I mean, that type of evaluation needs to be done though when you're discerning the person that you're going to marry. I mean, there are values that you can identify prior to getting married that are going to allow you to see whether or not that person is going to be a good fit for you.
Like what?
Um, and I'm not saying that those things are permanent. I mean, of course, there's always the risk that somebody changes. We do change over time, but well, I mean, like what you asked. I mean, what are your values? I mean, are you practicing your religious faith?
Mhm.
What are your political beliefs and values? My wife and I talk about this all the time. It would be very difficult to be married to somebody that didn't agree with us politically. I mean, I voted for Donald Trump. If I had a wife that, you know, loved Kamala Harris, I think I'd be in trouble right now.
But so, okay, when on your wedding day, she's practicing. 10 years later, she says, "No, I'm okay. I'm good. I don't wanna do it anymore." That happens, you know? People
That
change
so basically
over
you're saying, like, if I'm Catholic, I married a Catholic when we get married in the church, and then she decides that she is no
yeah,
longer
because
going to be
the
Catholic.
problem is with those stats where it says if you prayed every day and you go to church every day, you can't make somebody do that. So if the woman tomorrow, and that does happen, I have accounts of men that's happened to where she's religious on their wedding day, she's religious 5 years in, 10 years in, 15 years in, something changes. What is he supposed to do? Don't leave me.
Well,
I want to.
I mean, that's a good question, and of course, that puts the husband and wife in a very difficult situation, and it also puts, if they do have kids, that puts them in a very difficult situation. And again, we don't. Maybe we will get into some of the divorce laws, no fault divorce, in
Mhm.
which if for example, if a female changes her mind and basically says, I'm no longer Catholic.
Mhm.
Now there are ways you can go about it within the church to get that marriage annulled if you run into certain issues like infidelity, and there are other things that come into play. So I mean, there are ways that there are ways where you can, I guess you can say, legally separate, even within the church.
But
Now,
I'm
am
saying
I
today.
advocating for divorce? No, I'm not. But when it comes down to it, like, that's a situation, like, that's a worst case scenario, right? Like, that
It's
is, and
common.
I'm not saying it doesn't
It
happen, it
happened no,
certainly
it
does,
happened
but
in Michael Knowles.
that's bad for the individuals, and it's terrible for the kids if they
It
have
happened
kids.
in Michael Knowles' church. In his church from California, I interviewed a guy, and he went to his exact church, Latin mass. On her wedding day, she was a Latin practicing Catholic. 5 years later, she stole his kid and went to Europe. His kid doesn't speak his language. Interviewed another guy, Christian guy, didn't wanna get divorced, doesn't believe in divorce, he's from Texas. And, on their wedding day, they're practicing Christians. Fast forward 5 years later, she takes his children, and she just won a court case in Texas where she can legally transition his kids. He did everything he could. He spent hundreds of thousands. Both of these men spent $300,000 plus trying to get their kids back. Now, neither of their kids know who they are or have positive images of them. This is not
I'm not going to
uncommon.
deny that
So
you're going to be able to find examples within these communities where divorce and where terrible things happen. I mean, again, like, it's not just because that there's a traditional Latin mass community that has lower divorce rates compared to the rest of the population does not mean, like, again, like, when it comes down to the percentages, there are a percentage of those individuals that still do get divorced. So of course
but
you're
it's
going to be
not
able to
just
find
so it's
examples
not
within those communities,
it's
but
it's
when it comes down to it, like, you have to acknowledge that the percentages are significantly lower compared to the rest of the population. Like, and if you take the rest of the secular population,
mhm.
I'm sure it happens significantly more
Well,
than it does
but
in a
wait,
conservative
you
Catholic
again,
community.
you're ignoring what I'm saying though, because the problem with the stats you're talking about is they're only taking the people that are still practicing. And the challenge you get is some people start off practicing together. The wife says, I'm going to leave. He can't do anything. And so now he's not taken into that statistic because, like, now they're not praying every day and going to church, even though they started that way. So it's like very convenient. So it's like conveniently taking the winners. So it's not a good sample size. But if you take the number of divorces, and I don't know this I can't remember it off the top of my head, but Catholic, it's similar. It's because the problem is they have to convince men to get married. They have to. And the reason they have to is because men, if they don't keep convincing men to sign up, the government doesn't know what they're going to do with all of these single women. So that's why they're pushing it because they don't want to see homeless single women. They want men to do the hard jobs. They want men to keep paying alimony, keep paying child support, because part of child support is in Social Security. I'm kind of butchering it, but that's the reason why. So a lot of
Sure.
times with these places that are like pushing marriage, it's they're just conveniently taking the winners.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not without its problems, especially in the society that we live in. But I would ask you this, Pearl, like, do you agree that marriage is important for a functioning society?
Um, sure, when you practice it biblically, sure. But in
I heard you
today's
mention I heard you
but
mention when
today's
we were
but
talking about
today's
traditional women.
but
Go ahead.
today's society, they're paid to leave. So you can't have a traditional marriage when women are paid to leave. You can't. Because women will always have the upper hand.
I've heard you mention that you're not traditional. I mean, I don't think that you're modern,
Mm-mm.
I guess we can say, if we're talking about definitions.
No, I'll be modern. It's fine. I don't care.
Are you planning to get married? Are you gonna get married?
Do you want I mean, I'm
Well,
planning on
I'm
it, but
about
I
you there's a
don't
lot of words, I'm wondering about actions, like, is a part of
mhm.
your life plan to get married?
Um, I would never get married with the state because I would never want to put someone I love in that position, personally. I really think more women should opt out of doing that because I would never wanna put a guy in that position after the things I've learned.
And I don't and
When
I mean,
I
fine,
mean,
like, I'm
since we're
for
going personal, when did you get married? So I'm guessing you got married young?
my wife and I were 24
20.
when we both got married.
Okay. And you've been married, what, 10 years?
Um,
Because you look like 35, roughly 30,
yeah,
35.
good guess, I'm 35, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, 11 years, yeah, and we've got 5 kids, but my wife and I, we met in high school, and,
How old's
we've
your
known each other
youngest?
since we were 15 years
How
old,
old's your
so,
youngest?
he's 2. He's about to be
Yeah,
2, he's
so
one
the
and a
thing
half.
is when women tend to divorce when the youngest kid hits 5, so I wouldn't even say you're necessarily in the clear yet. Like, I don't know. And that's the thing, because you guys always talk very confidently as if you've won, and we don't know. Because I don't know what your wife is gonna be like in 10 years.
But Pearl, that's the case with anything in life. Like you have a successful media career and you have a great YouTube channel. 5 years from now, it
Mhm.
could be nothing, right? You could again like there's of course there's risk going into the future. Of course, the future's unpredictable,
Mhm.
but
But I don't understand how you guys so confidently push it as if it's the right decision when you don't know the outcome. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying decide for yourself.
uh, well, of course. I mean, each of us have our own individual
Mhm.
vocation. I mean, when it comes down to it, for me, again, I can only speak from my own experience. I not to get too
Mm.
deep into my background, but again, I was an athlete. I played college baseball. Again, I met my wife when I was 15.
Mhm.
Um, we've been together since we were 15, other than some brief breakups while we were in college, and I'm sure you'll start to question that a little bit. But for the most part, we were together for the entire time, and when it comes down to it for me, like I was an entrepreneur. I started my first business right after I got done with school.
Mhm.
And I wasn't necessarily put together financially, physically, as a leader or even spiritually when my wife and I first got married. Like we've both matured and we've both developed
Mhm.
over time. But what I can say is that something legitimately changed in me once when I got married, but then when we started having kids, it's almost like something in me switched to become like a man and a leader and to
Mhm.
get out into the marketplace and produce and build something that could provide for my wife and kids. Like that aspect of accountability is something that, has kind of powered me and it's something that doesn't go away. So, I
You don't
mean,
have that,
when
like,
it,
in yourself? Like, what? I don't
well,
get
of
it.
course,
So does your wife hold you accountable? You don't have that, like, inward? So, like,
sure. I mean,
if
well,
she
I mean,
left tomorrow, you wouldn't still have that?
well, I mean, I'm sure there's certainly some that's ingrained, but when it's about more than myself and when it's for my family, when it's for
Mhm.
other people, I mean, I think that takes you to another level. I think when you're doing something for other people, it enhances what you do. Now, do I think that I could have a successful business, and a media presence without being married? I mean, I'm sure that I could. I understand how to be competent, but at the
Mhm.
same time, it's like, but when there's other people that I can do it for, it enhances my life. It enhances all of it. It makes it
Mhm.
all better.
And
So the argument that I would
I'm
make
not
is that that
disagreeing,
is and
but
that's desirable
I
for a man to pursue, even though there are risks involved with doing it.
yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I don't think you're in the clear yet. Because again, most men get divorced when the youngest kid hits preschool. So we can't even know if you have a good outcome yet. So Like we
In
really
3
we
years, we'll get back together and we'll figure out where I'm at as far as my marriage go, and if you're right,
well,
uh
gray divorce is the greatest increase too. And that's what I'm saying. Nobody really knows.
what is that? You said gray
Gray
divorce?
divorce I think is 60s. That's like the big one of the biggest increases right now is gray divorce. So like
Oh,
people getting
older individuals
yeah,
divorcing.
yeah.
I mean, we're never in the
So the
clear. I
other
mean, I think that it's important to say though, you're never in the clear when it comes to risk of divorce, and that's why just like I'm never in the clear for my business always being
well,
successful,
I would
just like you're never in the clear with your health.
I
Like
wouldn't
it
equate
takes
it
daily
I would
activity, daily inputs that you have to execute in order to maintain something. Like of course, if I take my hands completely off the wheel
Mhm.
and I just like screw all my responsibilities, of course my marriage could fail. Like I agree with that, but this is a daily pursuit and I have daily responsibilities that I have to execute to remain,
But
on the path.
you can't control even if you do you do your responsibilities, she could still leave. Like, why did you guys break up in college? Like, what was the only reason I'm
Um,
bringing it up is because people use their relationship as an example. If you don't bring it up, I don't ask. But if you're gonna use your relationship as an example of what we should be, then it's like I have questions, right?
yeah, it's interesting that you asked that question. I mean, so I would say that the influence of older people telling us that we
Mhm,
needed to break up in order because just being with one person for your entire life, and this is actually funny because we
mhm.
grew up in religious households, going to church every Sunday, but we were actually given advice that, you know, you needed to see what else was out there. Now, that being said, I will say that my wife and I waited until marriage.
Okay. Well, 'cause my what I would think is if somebody influenced you guys back then, we don't know if that won't happen again, right? Like, if it happened before, it's possible it could happen again, right?
I mean, there are unknowns when it comes down to it. Like that's life. But here's what I can say. I mean,
And I don't wish it, I hope it works out, right? But the challenge is I've just seen this film before, right? So I've seen people that like, I'll give you an example, Steven Crowder, he went around for years saying how great his marriage was. A lot of the same talking points you're saying he said like 5 years ago. Now, everyone called him an abuser, he's divorced. Um, so and all of that was going on behind the scenes, right? So I have no idea what's going on behind the scenes with you guys. I'm
yeah.
not saying it is or it isn't. You're a stranger to me, I just don't know. And so I just wonder how people can so confidently like push something when there's no guarantee and you don't know for sure it'll work out. And the other thing is too, when I'm showing you these risks of these guys like getting their kids stolen, getting their kid transitioned, all of these, being like if a guy's between 50 and $100,000 a year, they take more than 50% of his income for 18 years. That's slavery. That's like there are absolutely men that are in worse places today and some even suicidal because they got married. So, do you think that if you push a guy to do it and he ends up in that position that you are at all responsible?
I mean, that's impossible to answer. I mean, that's impossible to answer. I mean, I would say like, I mean, so if a guy gets married, if a man and woman get married, and maybe you're talking about, I mean, obviously these are real. These really do happen. I'm not denying that.
Mhm.
But again, these are worst case scenario type of situations. They're not impossible, but they are worst case scenario type of situations. Of course, you have to take that. Of course, I there's the risk that I could go to sleep tonight and
Mhm.
my wife takes a knife and stabs me in the heart, right? Like that's possible because that's happened before. But we have to make, you make prudent decisions as you go through life. And when it comes down to it, like if you do want to pursue as a man getting married, having a wife that you can provide
Mhm.
for and who respects you and loves you, very rewarding thing to have in this life, and children, which again provides a lot of meaning and stability for a man, also for a family, for the wife and for the kids, and also for society at large. It's there are, and all the talking points. There
Mhm.
the importance of the nuclear family unit, heterosexual man and woman remain married in the household with the kids. I mean, I would even go a little further and say patriarchal structure of a marriage with the man actually providing for the family and the
Mhm.
wife in the home as long as she has kids. I mean, of course, if there's no kids involved, then there's more flexibility there. But that model is we talk. I mean, the word is ideal. I mean, that model is ideal for the individual and for society, but it also provides a tremendous amount of meaning
Mhm.
for the individual people that are involved in it, and it also protects children and allows them to grow up in an environment where they're stronger individuals so that when they do encounter all of these things that are tempting them, causing them to sin or trying
Mhm.
to, pull them into degeneracy, they're in a spot where they have a firm foundation that they can navigate through the world with, and it gives them a better chance. And when I say gives them a better chance, of course there's no guarantee. Like I'm doing all of this
Mhm.
and
Well,
Uh,
it
the
give
it
but it
all
gives
of my
you
my kids may be at risk for participate I
but
mean, they're
the
going to encounter sin, like, I acknowledge that, but again, like, I can only do my best, and I can only strive along this path toward the ideal, and a lot of
mhm.
meaning does come from that, so I think it's
The
again, you can point
challenges
out all the
the
horror stories,
challenges
but
the
yeah,
challenges it gives you a worse chance if you're the one, providing in terms of divorce court. So you're punished if if you do the patriarchal thing and pay all the bills. You're actually punished for it in court, and your child support payment like, I just interviewed, a guy in, I think it was Idaho, and he supported his wife, had 5 kids for 20 years, and she divorced him and he now has to delay his retirement by 12 years. He's in his 50s, 60s, around there. So I think I calculated it out. He'd be 69 when he could actually retire. Was that worth it? She alienated the kids from him. Now his kids don't like him. This isn't. So I actually wanted to see. Are you interested in learning more about this, or is this more like to preach? Is that? I'm just wondering because the next guest I have coming on, he like works with a lot of these guys, and I think it'd be interesting for you to talk to him. Would you be interested in doing that?
sure. I mean, I came on your show not to necessarily, butt heads with you, but I mean, again, I said to you that there are aspects of your message that I don't disagree with. And but there are certainly aspects of it that I do. And I'd be interested in learning more from that individual. But again, like I want to go back to that question that I asked you about you getting married, because that kind of puts your money where your mouth is with regard to all of this. And your answer was, well, I would never get married in the state. And I think that's interesting because like I don't give a crap what the state has to say about my marriage. Um, so I understand I understand what the laws are. I'm for laws that incentivize families, that disincentivize divorce. But you stated that you would put so what that alludes to is that you would potentially get married, but the state wouldn't be involved, which fine. So does that mean that I mean, again, I don't know what you're practicing as far as your religion goes, but like married in the church, like because I consider that like the marriage as a sacrament to be significantly more binding than what the state has to say about my marriage.
I'll let him pick. I'll do what he wants. I don't care. So
Can
if
you hear
he,
me?
yeah, I mean, I'll do what he wants. So if he wants to get married in the
Oh,
church, we can. I'll do what he wants. I don't care.
you said your boyfriend?
Yeah, I mean, whatever he wants to do, I'll do. We can call it whatever.
That sounds fairly submissive, Earl.
Yeah.